Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today to represent the flagship Cisco product from Cisco Cloud Networking team, Cisco Nexus Dashboard. I'm Azim Sulaiman, Director of Product Management. Joining with me today is Daniel Pitta, Technical Marketing Engineer on our Cloud Networking team. He will be walking us through some compelling Nexus Dashboard use cases. We look forward to be an interactive session today with Network Field Day session together. The role and purpose of IT in organization is undergoing a significant change, driven by the need of the business to become more agile and have greater control over the cost levers when it comes to technology. This transformation of IT involves many different aspects, not all of which are technology related, but the one thing that is very common is IT modernization, which is about to changing because of current and future demands. The adoption of more core business workloads across on-premises and cloud will accelerate the need of organizations to transform their organization roles, responsibilities, process, and structure, leading to multi-dimensional cloud networking challenge. Cloud networking native applications have stringent location-dependent requirements and low latency, regional data compliance, and resiliency. These applications rely on agile and resilient networks to provide the best level of experience for the workforce and the customers. How does an operations team deal with this such complex new reality? Get a unified correlated view for the infrastructure, respond proactively or predictively without entrenching people, process, and technology silos, deliver speed of business without increasing operating costs and tool sprawl. It is therefore a multi-dimensional challenge for IT to keep up application and network in sync. With the ever-increasing scope of the roles for NetOps and DevOps, an automation toolset is needed to accelerate the hybrid cloud operations and securely manage the expansion for on-prem and the cloud. The modern operation toolset promises to deliver value along these workflows by allowing the customer to automate and operationalize on the tool chain. However, the reality is a little bit divorced from the promise. With the disjoint operations infrastructure and the customer is left dealing with purpose-built appliances along with silos. Depending on the type of fabric, whether it's cloud or on-prem, it is a different appliance or appliance application stack. With the purpose-built applications comes with cost of maintaining the life cycle of these stacks, both for the hardware and software. It is very complex. The dependencies get out of hand very quickly, and the customer is held hostage for the tool chain that was supposed to deliver an immediate value. The problem doesn't end up here. Silo stacks means multiple telemetry capabilities, collections, and methods for these data that requires not-bound integrations or custom scripts to call these repositories and reconcile for automation. Guess what? A silo data lake means limited or no correlation with fragmented insights and a very high MTTR. Ultimately results in a broken experience, lack of end-to-end visibility, hard to automation, hard to manage multiple large sites. If you have to summarize the main challenge facing the networking team that are in charge of operating this increasingly complex and diverse set of environments, including public and private cloud, there are two key. The first challenge lies along the people and the dimensions, where learning the new semantics are specific for the new environment and upskilling them to operate these environments is hard. There's an agility in deploying these environments and automation to deploy at a scale. But operations still have a challenge since teams have been upskilled to operate and learn the semantics of these environments, such as specific to public cloud. Second, maintaining application across these diverse environments is really hard. Each environment, public versus private, provides a powerful set of foundational capabilities, but the challenge lying is underlying foundations together to application to run around these environments. For example, an application running in a private cloud, such as ACI or Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller, has different set of requirements for networking, security, and other semantics for microservices or virtual machines. The workload in the cloud has a different requirements. Again, speed of deployment and automation of deployments using script is not enough here. You also need a robust set of unified tools that allow you to homogeneously operate in these heterogeneous environment. That leads to me to tell you why Nexus Dashboard is really critical for us. Let's walk us through in a real world scenarios. A single operator could handle an on-premises network with homegrown tools, either scripting, spreadsheets, and command line interfaces. But tools start to proliferate with the addition of cloud environment. Personas like NetOps, DevOps, SecOps, and CloudOps teams acquire specialized commercial software, SaaS deployment, custom scripts, and pricey northbound integrations to meet their needs for data engineering and intelligence. Issues are wondrous to pinpoint. Even with all these tools, IT organizations still have difficulty in creating single workflow to respond for a closed loop ticketing raised by the users. When each team has a narrow window for monitoring their own domain and those separate data centers are correlated, there's no systematic way to identify the root cause for those anomalies. It takes a specialized expertise to connect and route data across regions using cloud-specific APIs and network services along with it. There's a deluge of devices and things getting connected. Every app needs a great network. As complexities increases, expectation also escalate. Hybrid network management often remains inefficient, subpar, despite all the tools and the money, the people on the task. The answer to all this complexity is a single command center is required with a single pane of glass. Since much of the difficulty is managing hybrid cloud network lies in a scattered where information's bringing everything together in one place goes a long way to addressing it. A single user interface that can access all these required tools, orchestration for all the interconnected sites, and a unified monitoring and analysis for observability for relevant data. Whether the challenge is managing the network and associated entities for on-premises or the cloud, or a combination of hybrid environments, IT has been on a quest for a unified management and observability entity. A single pane of glass defines and helps provide the ability to log in once with authorized credentials and view all these anomalies or issues networks being managed require immediate attention. IT ops remediate these issues from one screen without having to log into different panes and giving them different credentials. That is where Nexus Dashboard OneView provides a context-driven portal into network controllers and orchestration for deep troubleshooting. With Nexus Dashboard OneView, there is no need to log in at multiple applications and search the different credentials and the tools chains for the network problem. Nexus Dashboard OneView doesn't matter where the network is being monitored by n distinct Nexus Dashboard clusters or single stretch large clusters. The Nexus Dashboard cluster nodes can be managed in either form factors, physical or virtual. The virtual appliance can be deployed on compute nodes that can be hosted on premises or cloud. The OneView provides a single cohesive view for all the site being managed and the services installed with the cluster. Managing the network that connects on-premises, cloud, and edge locations for the workforce in a multidisciplinary effort by different personas like NetOps, SecOps, DevOps, or CloudOps. These teams control multiple facets of the IT infrastructure, the tool that they manage, where the workloads are run, the services level objective or SLOs, defining the user experience and implementer of zero trust to protect their environments and business needs, enabling these teams to deliver the best experience of the goal for agile automation powered by real-time insight and automation platform for the environments is very critical. That's where Nexus Dashboard delivers unprecedented simplicity by integrating multiple data centers and cloud site in a one dashboard. Deliver full lifecycle and insight from a single pane to manage the entire network. With that, I'm pretty sure you are very eager to see this in works. Let me pass the baton to Daniel to show us some of these new capabilities in real action.
So, good morning. My name is Daniel Pita. I'm a technical marketing engineer for the cloud networking team in Cisco, and I'm going to go over the OneView functionality that was released just 2 days ago with the Nexus Dashboard 2.1 code. I'm going to switch between two different screens here for two different use cases. The first screen I'm going to go over is just this landing page. As soon as you log in, this is what the operator would be greeted with. They can see a very simple little map of the geographies of their data center across the globe, and these tiles as you scroll a little bit further down to see active anomalies, audit logs within the last 24 hours, faults detected, and advisories detected. And these are all slightly customizable, where we can dig into different sites as needed. The map is a bit interactive, where we can get some information on the individual sites that I hover over. So how many leaf spines, what service is being used, and how many advisories and their anomaly score. There's also a table toggle in case I need to see the information in a flat line-by-line item. So here I can see the versions being run. I have some cloud sites. I have some DCNM sites. And that's pretty much the one view function from an operator perspective. But let's take a look at the administrator perspective and how this is configured. The administrator would simply go to cluster configuration and add in the individual routes to all the other Nexus dashboard clusters that need to be part of this single pane of glass. Once these routes are added into the management network, it's just a matter of going into this multi-cluster connectivity tab and clicking on Connect Cluster. As soon as I type in an IP address, the login domains will auto-populate, and it's required to use an external login domain such as Radius, TACAX, LDAP, what have you. And then just put in a username and password. And from there on, it'll show up here as either up or down. As we can see, I have one of my Nexus dashboards that is hard down, unreachable. And you can see that, importantly, I have a primary, which is the cluster which handles all of the configuration. And then I also have a little box telling me which cluster I'm locally connected to. If I was connected to a separate cluster, for example, if I come back over here, we can see that this primary is SPOG, but I'm logged into ND21QA FED. So it's nice to be able to keep track of where you are if you do have multiple of these clusters. So, swinging back over here and clicking on the little home button takes us back to the actual OneView page. So digging into what this capability actually brings us, let's go ahead and click on my top site with anomalies. So I'm automatically shown what my anomalies are by category as well as by severity, and I can change the time frame from the last 15 minutes to the last 24 hours. And all these requests are being proxied from the ND that I Nexus dashboard that I logged into to the Nexus dashboard that is hosting that particular site. So here I can see that this particular site, EFT Lab, has some issues with this spine, having a problem with endpoint learning. Some subnet routes are out of place. I can rearrange all of this information in real time based off of detection time. So there's some compliance issues going on, which we'll dig into later. And if I really wanted to, I can automatically, yes, there was a question?
Yeah, this is Ed. So really curious, this is a single display for everything. Is it actually aggregating event correlations across them too, or is it only just aggregating the display of information across what's happening?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ed. For now, it's just proxying requests of API. So we're just showing information that exists on another cluster. There is no cross-cluster correlation today, but it is definitely part of the plan.
Okay.
So quickly switching over to one of our other tiles here. Let's say looks like by advisories, I have this San Francisco site. So within the last 2 hours, let's see, I have 2 field notices and 1 hardware end of life, and these are all shown here. And this site is actually not hosted on my local Nexus dashboard, so it's good to be able to have that end-to-end visibility across my global enterprise landscape or data center landscape. Same thing with audit logs, who's made how many changes, organized by top number of changes. SF seems to have a lot of deletes going on versus some creates or modifications, and likewise by severity. It looks like overall everybody's pretty green in terms of faults. Now, one of the last things we can show here from the administrator perspective is this multi-cluster dashboard. What this is showing me is actually the health of my different clusters. So in terms of simplifying the life cycle of these different clusters, I have a single place where I can view the information of the actual hardware. CPU utilization, memory utilization, storage on these actual devices, as well as high-level information of my sites. So here I can see that 1 out of 2 of my sites are down, but my services are all green right here, and still that down site is just hard down, Nexus dashboard connection. Overall, this site has nothing configured on it, so usage is pretty low, and it looks like there's a major health concern on this particular cluster. So quickly clicking on one of these, it'll redirect me to that cluster. And single sign-on takes care of logging me in, as we can see here. DPTA is logged in. Well, switching over to the admin view, we see that there's a major alert here, and if I click on that, I can see that there's 4 errors, which are pretty much telling me that something is not in a desired state. So that handles that. Let me click back a few times and go back to my home page. One of the last things I wanted to talk about with the one view is this SSO. So we can see here I have a couple of different sites, and the cool part is that I can launch this AWS site. And this will be a different user. It's on a different cluster. So this is ND admin here at the top, and I automatically log into this Cloud APIC instance as ND admin, which is really pretty neat. So this whole simplified workflow of if I need to troubleshoot something immediately, I don't need to open a new tab. I don't need to put in my IP and remember my credentials or anything like that. I just click on the diagram and I'm automatically cross-launched into there. And likewise, with any of those anomalies, I can quickly dig into them by cross-launching Nexus Dashboard Insights, which is a nice little plus. Any one of these anomalies, I can double-click and see the information, and then it'll open up insights for me. Here we are. It's loading the site group for Nexus Insights, and it's going to draw me right at that anomaly that I was looking at earlier. Here we go. So that being said, I'm going to go back to home and show off the entire navigation. If I didn't want to reference the map or anything like that, from this side menu, I have all of the different services available, and the subtitle here is the different cluster where they're hosted. And I also have the different sites as well as the cluster where they are hosted. I can always click on the little blue box and it'll cross-launch me to where I need to go. So it's just a quick way to navigate around. We can do it by tiles and by the important metric we're looking into, do it based off of the map or do it based off of the table. Any other questions I can help answer?
So I just want to make sure I understand what OneView is doing is showing me all the other dashboards I have that are tied into Nexus products.
The OneView functionality is tying together the different Nexus dashboard clusters. So in this case, we can see on the screen here, I have maybe 5 or 6 different clusters, or physical clusters, and they're deployed across my different data centers managing individual different fabrics, so DCNM fabrics or ACI-based fabrics. So with all of those individual clusters, they can be tied together, so I have one centralized place to view the information from DCNM, from ACI, across the data center landscape.
So in a real world, if you look from a customer lens perspective, customer might have different types of network or different types of fabric. Let's say they have one in the East Coast, one is West Coast, and they might have a command center or operation center sitting in somewhere else. What OneView is trying to give you is to a global aggregate view. So I have telemetry collection happening locally in the East Coast because fabric resides closer to it. Like I don't want to send over the WAN or don't want to oversubscribe different locations. So OneView gives you an aggregated global view of multiple Nexus dashboard cluster, irrespective of their form factors and locations and environment. So that way you can have a single pane of glass, you can double click it, zoom in, you can customize views and so forth.
Yeah, so here we can see on navigation, I have an orchestrator service on one Nexus dashboard cluster. I have a couple of different instances of insights across a couple of other different clusters. And I have AWS, I have DCNM sites that are all being managed by either individual clusters or they're all aggregated based off of this OneView functionality.
Is this lighter weight than DNA Center in terms of like frameworks and how you guys have built it? I mean, is it in terms of being a little bit easier to administer and run and control? What's
The one view
sort of,
functionality, I believe, is really fairly simple to control. There's only like 3 basic requirements, which are the external login domain, and then configuring a route, and configuring the IP of the cluster. And that's really all it takes from the administrator overhead perspective. We can see
what
here
about
that
from a resource requirement basis though, in terms of getting it running?
It's a Kubernetes cluster with a minimum of 3 nodes. So fully highly available, highly scalable. And the way to think is it will have a uniform scale out architecture. So you might have a Nexus dashboard Kubernetes cluster in physical form factor, which can have minimum of 3 node and can go all the way. Like today we have already certified 7 and plan is to increase more. Same thing you can have in virtual form factors, which we use a concept of clusteroid. So you can have a small multiple clusters in app and data node that can also scale out. One view stitches them all these different form factors and runs the global view. So that way, it doesn't matter which form factor and which environment they reside. You can still have through an API gateway that can connect all these Kubernetes cluster and show the full visualization end to end.
Yep, the cluster themselves is very simple to bring up. You really only interact with one of them during the setup process. I mean, you configure the out-of-band SIMC connection, give it a management IP, and then everything else from there is a UI-driven, where the primary master is connecting to the secondary and tertiary masters via SIMC, and all of that configuration is pushed over or serial over LAN, basically. But it's very simple from an administrative perspective to get the cluster up and running. And then if we did need to add further nodes outside of the 3 masters, it's a matter of just adding in a worker node, and the workflow is here on the screen, where we just put in the SIMC address, username, and password. We hit validate, and it initiates that connection. We give the worker a name, and the serial number is auto-populated. Fill in the actual out-of-band address and the data network address by which the nodes in the cluster all cluster.
It's a little weird that you guys have the V6 gateway component in there. Don't you just learn that from the RA automatically?
That's a great question. I haven't played with the V6 gateway, but it is a dual stack functionality here, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, so think this way. The reason of have V6 gateway is customers who have like only native IP V6, right? How you will connect from the API gateway for that purposes. But customers who have dual stack, they will go by default depending on IPv4 and IPv6. So we allow both capabilities. Currently, the dual stack is heavily preferred on IPv4 for the gateway purposes, but in future we'll have full capabilities of IPv4 and IPv6 both under the hood.
What is who is the intended user for this? Is this kind of a NOC team operator type thing?
Yeah, from a persona perspective, heavy target on NetOps and the CloudOps team. That's where we see more, because in a hybrid world, it's not going to be only for NOC or NetOps, right? Because in organization, there might be CloudOps team that works across with the interconnects and the cloud environment. But from the architecture perspective, it doesn't matter to us which persona. Let's say DevOps teams want to use for CI/CD pipeline, they can use the API or Terraform and other providers to do a full automation. Same goes for SecOps or AppOps team. If they want to use, they can have the different interfaces. That's how we build the framework in such a way that when they log in, they don't need to have credential authentication and all these rollbacks, which can tie to their current providers for authentication. But yeah, core personas will be the NetOps and the CloudOps. That's where we see more and more.